Have you ever heard of the phrases, the rich are getting richer? Money makes money. The more money you have, the more you make. Well, in this video today, I want to explain exactly why phrases like this exist, especially for those wealthy expats working overseas, earning much more than they would back home and living in low-tax countries such as the UAE or here in Dubai. I'm going to explain why your net worth really takes off after $1 million and how to structure your finances to get to $5, $10 million and beyond. By the way, for those who don't know me, I'm Sam. I'm the founder of the only certified fiduciary in the whole of the Middle East, Asia and Africa. Now, fiduciary basically means trusted, and that, unlike the traditional industry, we're on your side when it comes to providing wise counsel that's in your genuine best interest. And I've spent over 2 decades and more than 50,000 hours helping wealthy, successful expat families make sage, wise decisions and achieve their most cherished life dreams. So, back to today's topic, and let's start with the why. Why does your net worth explode at $1 million? Many people believe that reaching a certain threshold suddenly grants you exclusive access to better opportunities, and that these opportunities mean better investments, which come with higher returns. And they claim that is why expats get richer. But the evidence shows that the opposite is actually true. There are actually 3 other important factors that come into play, and that is why your net worth explodes after $1 million, none of which are related to the type of investments that you have access to. And so the first reason, when it comes to creating wealth, the uncomfortable truth is that in the short term, your investment contributions will be the primary driver of your portfolio. Let's just take a look at this graph. Your contributions will initially be doing all of the heavy lifting, and eventually, after a very long period of grind, this will switch over to market returns. But this does take time, and most people never ignite this remarkable wealth creation engine and get started because they either don't like contributing regularly to the investments, or perhaps they aren't exactly sure how to invest such contributions wisely. The latter is often what I hear from wealthy expats in this region who are constantly being bombarded by conflicting information. As you can see, the real gain comes at the end of the journey, not at the start. And so every single day that you're not investing, you're losing out on the opportunity of time and compounding. Inflation is a hidden tax upon your wealth. Sage, wise, good investment is the best way to ensure that you don't ever have to pay this tax. Time is the most important thing that you have on your side, so even if you don't have $1 million to start with whatever you have right now. The second reason why your net worth explodes at $1 million and beyond is the scale of capital. Now, let's look at different amounts invested, but all with the same 10% return. A 10% return isn't unrealistic with history and science as our guide, but achieving this is the topic of another video, so please subscribe to this channel. Suppose you invest $1,000 with a 10% return. After 1 year, your investment would have grown to $1,100, so a profit of $100. If you invest $10,000 with the same 10% return, your investment will grow to $11,000 after 1 year. Same 10% return, just a larger absolute number, so your profit is $1,000. Now, take $100,000 investment and the same 10% annual return. This would grow to $110,000, resulting in a profit of $10,000. Let's look at the $1 million investment with the same 10% return. This would grow to $1.1 million, resulting in a profit of $100,000. By the way, I've linked below to a free guide on the basic principles of investing that everybody should know, which is full of sage investing wisdom backed by decades of academic research and Nobel Prize-winning economists. The risk and the period are the same in all of these cases, but the profits are significantly different when you choose to invest different amounts. Scaling capital allows for higher returns on a larger amount of your money. As you increase the size of your investment, the absolute return also increases proportionately, which ultimately means that your wealth grows at a much faster rate. The third thing that people miss is what's known as the 8th wonder of the world, and that's compound interest. Compound interest is, simply put, interest upon interest. Not only are you earning money on your original money or the principal balance, but you're also earning money on the interest you've already made through the original investment. Think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill, gaining snow, getting bigger and bigger, faster and faster, to the point that it's just unstoppable and the gains are literally exponential. It's the easiest way to explain this with an example. You may have heard this story before because there are a few versions, but the essence remains the same. In Indian folklore, a wise man called Sessa apparently invented chess for his king, and in return asked for payment in grains of rice. 1 grain on the first square of the chessboard, 2 grains on the second, 4 grains on the third, and so on, until all the squares on the board had rice upon them, each square with double the amount of the previous square. The king laughed at him for asking for such a small prize, and sounding like a great deal, the king agreed to pay up. The king got his officials to collect the rice and started placing it upon the chessboard. By the time he'd reached the last square on the first row, square 8, he'd placed 255 grains of rice in total. But by the end of the second row, the king needed 65,535 grains of rice. By the end of the third, he'd placed over 16 million grains of rice. By the time he reached the final square of the board, square 64, he needed more than 18 quintillion grains of rice in total. That's about 700 times greater than the total annual global rice production today. Obviously, investing is unlikely to double your money every year, except in very extreme cases, usually being a recovery after a very large market fall. But there's also a nifty rule called the Rule of 72 that you can use to see how quickly you will double your money based upon returns that you achieve, or alternatively, how quickly the value of your money will be halved by inflation. All you need to do is divide 72 by the rate of return or by inflation. So, a return of 3% will double your money in 24 years because 72 divided by 3 equals 24. Either way, it's clear to see the power of compounding, that's interest upon interest, can have on your wealth. Each dollar earned starts earning its own interest, like the snowball I mentioned earlier. And compound interest rewards patience and consistency. The first milestone might take time, but after that your money starts to build on its own and success comes faster and faster. This is the reason why in our previous chart it takes 20 years for the investment return to become greater than the amount of your contributions, but then only 10 more years for the investment returns to become 68% of the value of everything. The hardest and most time-consuming part is often at the very beginning because you just don't have compound interest working for you. So you have to do a lot of that heavy lifting yourself through your own contributions. And that's also why a lot of financial guidance for people at the start of their journey is based around optimizing every penny. But what are some of the things you can do to make sure you skyrocket your wealth beyond the milestone of $1 million? Say to reach $10 million faster. Here are 2. Firstly, having worked with successful families for more than 2 decades, I know this isn't about those high status investments I mentioned at the beginning. It's actually about sensible planning, sensible structures, and sensible optimization combined with great decision making. Here at AES, we call this big picture advice. It looks at each of the 4 great asset classes: cash, bonds, property, and stocks, and then puts together a plan to optimize them all together. Optimization is about making the most of what you have. It's like cleverly solving a puzzle, finding a trick to skip steps and get the answer faster. Just like compounding, optimization is extremely powerful. It allows us to make the very most of our limited resources, whether that's time, energy, or money. But like any tool, it's only as good as the hand that wields it. Used wisely, optimization unlocks hidden potential and can drive absolutely extraordinary results. Used poorly, it leads to wasted effort and missed opportunities. Knowing how best to use it drives when to use it, when to let go, and when to avoid it. It gives you a key advantage and is the reason that I see so many millionaires skyrocket their wealth. They build via contributions, capital scale, compound, and then optimize. The second thing that you can focus on is increasing the amount that you can invest. It doesn't mean that you need a $5 million lump sum to invest straight away, but just think about ways you can contribute more on a monthly basis, and notice that at no point have I said find shiny investments with better returns, because I've seen so many wealthy individuals that obsess over what they invest in, trying to find a small percentage increase per year in their portfolios, trying to optimize or find the best strategy, fund or platform, which, yes, of course, this can make a difference, but the thing that's really going to drive the results and what you can control is just increasing the amount that you can invest. To illustrate this, if you're investing $2,500 a month for 30 years at a 10% return, you'd end up with over $5.6 million. If you gained an extra 2% return per year from your investments, you'd end up with just over 8.7 million, which granted is a huge amount. What about if instead of focusing on the stock market and tirelessly trying to optimize for the best returns, which is hard to do, you put your energy into increasing the amount that you earn day to day, look to the great companies of the world as a way to just multiply your wealth, or to place and park your money within, that money that you work hard for, and then let that money do the hard work for you. So maybe you get a promotion and are paid more, or you have a side business, or you join your investments with your partners. And let's say instead of that extra 2% return in the stock market, you're able to double the amount that you invest every month. Instead of investing $2,500 a month, you invest $5,000 a month. Then you'd end up with $11.3 million after 30 years. That's a return over the time frame of $5.7 million by just doubling the amount that you invest regularly, rather than a return of 3.1 through trying to predict the stock market or pick out your investments, which in my experience can potentially also knock people off course. Now, although there are many rules for building wealth, the path is different for everyone. For me, it's all about thinking in decades and adding every penny I can to the great companies of the world. Then having the time, the patience, and the discipline to stick with the plan, even when it feels uncomfortable to do so. Don't underplay the impact that the combination of increasing the amount that you can invest and the time that you could invest for has on your overall future net worth. However, I appreciate investing large sums of money in one go can feel and seem very intimidating, and working out exactly where and how to invest can be very tough. So check out this next video where I explain the investment strategy that my clients and I use and the exact breakdown of my own portfolio.